Hello everyone, greetings from Rome. A warm and affectionate welcome to each one of you on this online Ignatian Ecospiritual Conference. It gives me immense joy to greet each one of you at this conference, joining from various continents and countries. Truly a gracious gift to encounter God in nature, especially during this critical time of so many natural and human-made calamities all over the world. But when we are truly aware, we are privileged to see, listen, touch, and feel the sacred presence of God in creation. And if attentive, we can listen to the deeper cry of nature for healing and the cry of the poor for justice. For the General, in his message, invited us to open ourselves up to the ongoing ecological conversion and to create a hope-filled future that we desperately need. But ecological conversion can begin only when we begin to acknowledge the sacredness of the other. The other, fratelli, is not only humans, but also the entire creation. This is a sacred moment for us to see creation with the eyes of God, who made, cares for, and protects every bit of creation. St. Ignatius in the spiritual exercises invites us to look how God dwells in all creatures and in the elements, giving them being. Friends, let me begin with two of my own experiences. One as a child, when my father helped me to recognize the sacredness of the earth and creation, and the other as a Jesuit in Kolkata, where I was starkly made aware of the desacralization processes. First, my father was a farmer, and we cultivated paddy, lentils, and other tropical food crops. As a child, I grew up going to our farm early in the morning along with my father for the welfare of the crops. I was always happy to be with him and learn about cultivation. One day when I returned home from school for my summer holidays, I went to the land where my father and mother were working and entered with my sandals on. And my father told me, "Go and put your sandals away. This land gives us food. It gives us life. It is sacred. You cannot enter into the sacred place with the sandals on." A lesson that has remained deeply ingrained in my heart with the realization of the sacredness of land. Even today, I hesitate to climb the altar with my shoes because that too is a sacred place. My second experience was in Kolkata way back in 1996 as a young Jesuit working in the social apostolate. I was visiting one of the villages where people cultivated vegetables, especially genetically modified, high-yielding pumpkins, eggplants, etc. To have more yield, they used plenty of fertilizers and pesticides. There they told me that as the years passed, farmers began realizing that there were plenty of flowers on the plants, but the yield was less. They realized that there was no pollination taking place, since there were no bees or insects like butterflies that help in this agricultural process, and they especially missed the earthworms. The pesticides they used killed all those earthworms and bees. Therefore, the villagers started going to the field early in the morning, plucking the male flower to touch the female flower to pollinate the plants manually. Later on, with the help of NGOs, we began to create awareness on the impact of pesticides and educate them on natural farming and creating honeybee farms in the area, which helped economically as well. I'm sure all of us have witnessed such things in the countries we live in. It might be good for all of us to wonder at the marvels of creation and how God organized all things to work together, including the microbes in the soil invisible to us. We need to stop and remind ourselves and the people around us of the harm that we are inflicting on our earth, given freely to us as a gift from the Creator. Long ago, St. Ignatius in the spiritual exercises invited the exercitant to follow Jesus closely, using not only intellect and imagination, but also one's 5 senses to be closer to Him. In every exercise, he invites us to see, hear, touch, smell, and taste. He asks us to recognize the sacredness of creation and to build a close relationship with the environment. Hopefully, this is what we will be doing during this conference from wherever we are. Friends, we know that Jesus lived as the son of a carpenter. That he would have knowledge about different types of wood and how to use them is quite understandable. However, we find Jesus speaking about farmers and their relationship with the land, seed and farming, fishermen and their close bond with the sea and nets, about the rich and their attachments to riches, power and position, and laws made by the rulers. He was also very alert to identify the fragility and vulnerability of the poor, the outcasts, and the rejected, who depended totally on the mercy of God and those who were willing to reach out. If you were unaware that he was the incarnation, you would wonder, who taught this carpenter's son about agriculture or about politics or religions? I strongly believe that Jesus spent a lot of time in silence, seeing, observing, listening, feeling the natural world, and learning while he was with his foster parents in his early years, praying with nature. Observation and meditation were his teachers. Jesus used all the profound spiritual wisdom that he gained from nature to teach people through simple, understandable parables. In and through them, he invited, and now invites each one of us today, to be keen observers and listeners of all that is happening to nature today. He wants us to listen to the cry of nature and to be empathetic to the cry of the poor. Friends, I remember my visit to Jesuit Social Services in Melbourne a few years ago. At the entrance of the institute, there was a sculpture of a tree with meticulously wired roots. The roots covered 2/3 of the sculpture. It helped me to realize how important the roots, the hidden earth, are for any plant. I also remember visiting the botanical garden in Kolkata, where there is the oldest and biggest banyan tree in the world, covering 3.5 acres of land. What an amazing miracle it was to stand under the shadow of this tree. Friends, I invite you to remember a moment when you were simply ecstatic in experiencing the marvel of creation and its impact on all of us. You may also take any one of the parables that you find meaningful to you in your context. I, being a farmer's son, feel naturally inclined to take the parable of the sower and the seed in Matthew chapter 13. He tells us about the seed falling on different types of soil and the growth that takes place based on the nature of the soil or the environment. What is more interesting for me today as we begin this conference is to pay attention to what Jesus says at the end of the parable. The disciples asked him why he spoke in parables. Then he opened their mind and heart to the wisdom that he gained from nature. He says, "The reason I speak to them in parables is that seeing they do not perceive, and hearing they do not listen, nor do they understand. With them indeed is fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah that says, 'You will indeed listen, but never understand, and you will indeed look, but never perceive. For this people's heart has grown dull, and their ears are hard of hearing, and they have shut their eyes, so that they might not look with their eyes, and listen with their ears, and understand with their heart, and turn, and I would heal them. But blessed are your eyes, for they see, and your ears, for they hear. Truly I tell you, many prophets and righteous people longed to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it." My dear friends, let us make the best use of this opportunity of this conference to become aware of God's presence in creation and commit ourselves to respect their sacredness and establish a close bond with them. The indigenous people all over the world know it well. We have much to learn from them. Let me conclude my reflection with a quote from what is called a Native American in the United States of America. Jack D. Forbes, in his article, "Indigenous Americans, Spirituality and Echoes," writes, and I quote, "For us, truly there are no surroundings. I can lose my hands and still live. I can lose my legs and still live. I can lose my eyes and still live. But if I lose the air, I die. If I lose the sun, I die. If I lose the earth, I die. If I lose the water, I die. If I lose the plants and animals, I die. All of these things are more a part of me, more essential to my every breath than is my so-called body." What is my real body? We are not autonomous, self-sufficient beings, as European mythology teaches. We are rooted just like the trees, but our roots come out of our nose and mouth like an umbilical cord, forever connected with the rest of the world. I am a point of awareness, a circle of consciousness, in the midst of a series of circles. One circle is that which we call the body. It is a universe itself, full of millions of little living creatures living their own separate but dependent lives. But all of these circles are not really separate. They are all mutually dependent upon each other. End of the quote. Friends, once again, wish you a wonderful, grace-filled, eco-spiritual conference. Thank you very much.